This is where the fun begins.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
Hello and good morning, everyone. And yes, I can get my clips right. Act like I haven't been here for a couple of weeks, right? I thought I clicked on the intro version and ran and got my coffee because I left it out in the kitchen and came back and realized I was playing the exiting. Yeah, we're not ending the stream here. So here's your good laugh from me to you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to OG Star Wars channel. I am your host, Alora, and welcome. It's been a while. Like I said, 2 weeks. Had a family, I guess you could say, tragedy and stuff, and so my mind wasn't here, and I wasn't really focused on anything regarding, creating a stream and all this other stuff. So welcome those watching on YouTube, those watching on Twitter, and if you are on Rumble, thank you so much. I have to go open the window on that side. I forgot to do that this morning. But if you're not on Rumble, go over there, create an account, follow, and subscribe. Become a Rumbleite. Let's go ahead and grow it over there because you never know what's going to happen on this end with YouTube. So get your booties over there and get involved on the Rumble side. And I see Pierce is over there. Nothing in the last 30 years updated. My 59 years has been a compelling as the finale of Revenge of the Sith. Correct. And you know what? So what is great about Rumble is that you can play clips. When you set up your stream, instead of doing thumbnails, you can have a video, I guess you could say a clip, thumbnail or clip that can play. And when someone clicks on your video to set reminders and stuff like that, there's a video playing there. And it is this one. And I love it so much because the passion that she has.
I'm telling you, this finale, it's unbelievable how tepid contemporary art seems compared to the passionate quality of this finale. So you have this like huge, it's like romantic nature painting, apocalyptic landscape of the lava. Lucas crosscuts the destruction of the Senate chamber, and you have the destruction of industry going on. And then after all these horrors, it is so beautiful. I'm saying, my God, nothing in the last 30 years in any of the arts has been produced as emotionally compelling and significant as the finale of Revenge of the Sith.
Exactly. And Revenge of the Sith is my second favorite, very close to my first favorite, Return of the Jedi. Kind of weird. I wouldn't say it's weird, but for me, I like the ending movies of the saga for whatever reason. Well, there's not whatever reason. There are reasons why I love them so much. So with that being said, as we open up here today, first question of the day is, what is your favorite Star Wars movie from the 6 movies by George Lucas? You can share it in the comments. You can even say why you like it. and let me know. I know we always talk about this, right? We always do, but sometimes sometimes like when I read, for example, when I read through the EU, sometimes my favorites kind of shift just a little bit revisiting. I'm recalling some things that I may have missed prior in the first or second read of that novel. So feel free, like sometimes with the movies, and it could be more fixed with the movies, that what is your first, second, and third, what you like about them. And do they shift around? Does it shift around according to what you're reading within the Star Wars lore? That's a very, complex question. But the lore, once you get into the broader galaxy of Star Wars, sometimes that can make even your favorites in the movies shift a little bit. So if you're reading in the PT era, sometimes that, like, your favorite shifts. Or if you're reading in, I guess you could say, the OT into all the way into, maybe you could say, legacy era, maybe that influences your shift in which movie you like more, based upon everything that you have read so far, enhancing the movies, right? Enhancing the movies. So these are not just these are not substitutes for the movies. They are not here to replace. They are here to expand. They are here to give a broader look at the Star Wars galaxy, because the movies they can only tell you so much, right? And the novels can tell you more and give you more stories outside of the movies. So I think it's very interesting how that works, right? And let me see what you guys are saying. Let me say hello. And I got to pull up the window for Rumble so I can fully see on that side. Like I said, I forgot to do that earlier. And we have Rodimus Prime. Hey, what's up? How are you doing? And we have Purist over there, one of our Rumbleites. So hello, how are you doing over there? And let's see. Rodimus Prime says, hey, OG, what was your reaction when the Clone Wars 2003 first aired on Cartoon Network the first time? I was intrigued. I was curious. So that was my reaction. I was curious because it was short and sweet, but it caught my eye. And so I had to keep an eye out for more. Yeah. So that's my honest reaction. Also, when you rewatch Star Wars episode 1 through 6, do you include Clone Wars 2003 in between episodes 2 and 3? Well, that's where it relatively is based, right? In the timeline. Yeah. So let's see here. And we have Conrado from the Philippines. Good sister fistin' morning in the Philippines. Woo-wee. All right. That's never gonna leave your vocabulary. The sister fist clowns, I guess you can say, of Dathomir. That's fucking crazy, right? Like I don't know. The whatever the name was. Oh my god. All right. Anyways. Camille for the win. The Wii Revenge of the Motherfucking Sith. Yeah. For the W, for the win. Yeah. I need to put my fucking glasses on because I see the W and then I was like, the exclamation point almost looked like a hole, like an I, like an uppercase I. And so I was like, win, he must have forgot the N, but yeah, the W, but that still means the same. I need my glasses. I should go grab them. All right. And then Disney's way of moving on to the Skywalker saga is killing when they're at their humiliation state and steal their post OT legacies and give it to Palpatine's granddaughter. Yeah, that's been apparent for a very long time. And welcome to our another mod here, Mr. Soul Assassin. How are you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting and all of that, as well as everyone else. And I don't see Scran here, but I think he by now should be here in the States, I believe, from what I've heard. He said he was flying out Wednesday, and that was yesterday. So, Scran, if you have by chance or been able to listen in, or if you're catching up on your sleep and resting from the travel because you came back in time. Welcome to the United States of America. So he's one of our other mods here. So Scran, if everything went well, I didn't check. His flight was yesterday. Yeah. So check out my merch. I still haven't done much to get everything going for my gallery and stuff online. So I need to get my shit straightened. Well, I wouldn't say it's an excuse, but priorities were elsewhere, was with family, I guess you could say. All right. Lucas may not like it or call it episode 9, but the rebrand Star Wars season 2. What? Okay. Sub to OG's Rumble. Yes, get your butts over there. I need to open it up. I still haven't done it yet. All right. So today I'm going to say hello to everybody still. Today we're going to, recap on New Jedi Order from what we talked about already. We're going to do Lucas Facts, Lucas Book of the Weeks. We're going to talk about how AI, if you're using it to write your papers, write your tweets, all of that, you are causing harm for your own brain health. We're going to get into that. And we're also going to get into mythos. Why not? Star Wars is its own mytho. That's what George wanted Star Wars to be, is its own mythology. And, similar to Tolkien as well, he created his own mythology for his people there. And with Lord of the Rings and creating a huge world, I guess you could say, behind that. But the mythologies of our modern times, of the earth, right? And what does that mean? Like I wouldn't say what does that mean, but when cultures have own mythologies, it gives us, and they create their own stories, mythologies, all of that. It gives us a glimpse into their societies, into their gods, into maybe what their hero's journey is. And what sparked this interest in me wanting to talk about the mythologies is not only because of Star Wars, but because of Odyssey. Now, Odyssey is a hero's journey, and we'll get into that. And it doesn't do injustice to the culture that has these mythologies when you begin to change origins and people and stuff. Doesn't do injustice to them. So we're going to get into that. And we could even say that with Star Wars versus Disney Star Wars, the injustice going on there. So we're going to get into that. So stay tuned for that. I have my Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth with me. I have my Star Wars The Magic of Myth with me. I also have Odyssey pulled up in a brief little timeline here for Greek mythology that I'll share with you guys here as well. But because we are seeing this back and forth now with the casting for Odyssey and the changing of even the perception of how people talk during that time frame, all of that, I think it's very important to tune into what is a mythology, how does it make it unique for the group of people that have it, and how it shares a glimpse into their culture, their society, and also for the mythologies of a franchise like Star Wars or Tolkien's, and how does that show, or how does that give us as modern humans a glimpse of a mythology there that we can relate to, and how important it is to, I guess you could say, represent or appreciate those mythologies without bastardizing them, right? And I say this coming from a culture that also has their own mythologies. And I was going to pull up some stuff on my end from my culture, but my point will be made regarding that. So we'll get into all of that. Let me see here. I'm going to scroll down. We have Mike here. How are you doing? Finally finished True Setback Core this morning. I'm a slow reader. Really enjoyed it. A worthy sequel to Return of the Jedi. Yeah. So it's crazy, right? Like with these alien species that are trying to take over Bakura and then encapsulate the human essence or the species essence for their fighting machines and stuff, and how that, Bakura and the system there didn't even realize that the Palpatine and the Empire fell. So very, very fun, good read. It's fun, fun, fun. Fun, fun, fun. Nothing in the, oh yeah, I already read that one. And let's see here. And we have Charles here. How are you doing? I love that opening lightsaber scene fight between Luke and Palpatine. Yeah, the animated one, pretty badass, right? Yeah. And I know you're talking about with Revenge of the Sith versus the Revenge of the Sith. Let's see here. And I'm on I'm of the primacy of effect. My first experience is my favorite for entertainment in general. So A New Hope is my first, tied with Empire Strikes Back. Hey, that's fair. That is fair. I bounce between Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith, but I've been stuck on Return of the Jedi being the best for a couple years now. Yeah. It's like the argument, yeah, you don't have to like certain aspects of something to still have it be your favorite. Like when people found out that the Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiees is when you started seeing the complaint more and more and more about Ewoks being, not being favored and stuff like that for Return of the Jedi being awful or bad or whatever. And then you hear that similar with Jar Jar Binks. Like I said, you don't have to like a character or a specific scene or not agree with it, but it still can be your favorite. And not liking a character doesn't mean that the movie is bad. So when people correlate, well, they hate the Phantom Menace because of Jar Jar and da-da-da. No, they just hate the character and the decision for it. Doesn't mean the movie's bad. It just means that you just don't like a character. So I don't know. It's like, we're going to talk about this cognitive failure when you come into modern society with using too much AI to speak for you, talk for you, and all that stuff on social media. Now, AI, yeah, it could be a fun, creative tool to help you, brainstorm on and how an image is going to look that you're going to paint. Or you can even use Photoshop for that. Right. And quick thumbnail creation for your videos, right? Or writing down your ideas for a song and then letting the program create that song for you. But when you use that, and I'll get into some more, to basically do your typing and stuff like that, your thought process, you are basically, it's called cognitive atrophy. Yeah, I'm getting into that. So there's this fine line, like with everything, there's this fine line. Don't step over that line where you're going to cause your brain to go mush, because that right there is just some sad, sickening things. All right, so let's see here. I like all Star Wars. That's a good one. Hopefully it's just not, hopefully you're not thinking Disney is your Star Wars. And how are you doing, Nazo? Welcome, welcome. And let's see here. Where's Scran? Who will be more American cowboy than Filoni? Oh my goodness. And I'm pretty sure, like, if everything went well and he got his flight, like he said, and stuff like that, he has this big old welcoming from his in-laws and stuff like that. Yeah. And Charles is here, had to step away, but I'm back. Well, welcome back. And Derek, what's up? How are you doing? Let's see did I miss anybody else? If I did, Lucas is here. How are you doing? And fans who want Star Wars to be gritty and mature should urgently read New Jedi Order, ha ha ha, right? And then we have G Hydrogram. I'm sorry if I butchered that. Good morning to you. All right. What's this? It's too late. My brain's been mush since the 90s. Oh my goodness. All right. So you guys, we have this interesting topics coming up. So before we get into them, let's go ahead and get into the book of the week. So let me find that clip. Here we go.
I hate to say it, but it looks like
Story.
the item you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
So, book of the week. So, since we've been going through this New Jedi Order Renaissance for a long time now, kind of like halted on my reading the last couple of weeks. So I got to pick up on that. But since we're on this, why not do a book that has, you can consider, I wouldn't say it's a tie-in, but it contributes to the lore and develop of that. But we'll get into this. So Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. The cover artist is David Stevenson, and it was published May 2000. Timeline is 29 BBY. So I didn't give when the hardcover was published and when the so right now I just use the standard May 2000 when the first when it was first published. So you have paperback, you have hardcover, so they both have their own publishing dates when they were brought out in those formats. So Rogue Planet, how many of you guys read this book and what are your thoughts about this book? Before I get into continuity here, what are your thoughts about it? Jocasta is such a bitch. If you insult the archives, it's hilarious, right? Don't mess with her research and her data collection. All right, it does contribute to the lore. Just wish it was more interesting. Yeah, that's what I hear. It's one of those where it's got this 50-50 back and forth. Like some like it, some don't. Or just like it's mid or mediocre or mid. And that's fine because not everything is going to be a banger, right? Some things are going to be mid. You're going to read it. You're going to get the lore. And then it's just not going to be something that you're going to return back to all the time. So I get it. There's those books that are, you can go back and read again and again. And there's books you can read once and you're like, okay, I understand this and not really go back to it at all. Now this is not yet. I'm planning on it though. And again, like I say, you make your own opinion about it. You read it, you make your own opinion about it, and then come back and tell me. Yeah. So let's see here. Jedi are supposed to not have attachments, but Jocasta sure loves the library with so much passion that any critique to it is personal. Right. Yep. She's got her attachment. And Jihid Ramen. Okay, so I think I read that all wrong. Sorry, but anyways, I'm soon gonna get to that book. I'm still on Jedi Apprentice series. Oh, nice read. That's fun. Exegol is clearly supposed to be Melkor. Yeah, I mean, I would say Bis, but if you're really saying like Bis is in the core, right? So, but Exegol is not. So there you go. So I can kind of see what you're going at with that. But when you look at the Dark Empire versus the return of Palpatine, or the rise of Palpatine, the return of Palpatine, you can see a lot of similarities there. Yeah. So here we go. Continuity notes. Rogue Planet was seen as essentially a chapter in the storyline. So that storyline, which described the galaxy being threatened by brutal invaders who wield organic technology. So the storyline with New Jedi Order. These aliens, the Yuuzhan Vong, were not detailed by name in Rogue Planet, but their presence was implied in the sketchy description of the Far Outsiders. Furthermore, the planet Zonama Seacop returned to play a critical role in the New Jedi Order by the end of the series. Cyanur described, I left the S out. Cyanur described to Tarkin a radical dream project, an immense space station the size of a moon. This marked the first chronological appearance of the gem of an idea that would develop into the Death Star. So there you go. New York Times bestseller, 5 weeks. Let's see here. Yeah, so let's see. Viger read Rogue Planet to Jason and Us in Destiny's Way. The same with the Pharaoh's Pharaonian, I can't say, during the Force Heretic trilogy. There we go. All right. So there you go. So I would say if you haven't read it and you're reading through New Jedi Order, feel free to go back and read that, especially when you get towards Force Heretic and stuff where they start making their way to find Zonama Seacop, basically. I would say that is, you can go back if you want to and read. If not, then pick it up after you're done reading New Jedi Order. And, take your time and then just take notes of, the lore continuity connections, right? The lore continuity connections there. So I thought I'd have this as book of the week. And if you don't have it in your library, I highly suggest get it there and check it out. And if it's going to be a reread, maybe you'll catch something that you haven't before. That's the fun thing about rereads, even if it's your favorite or not, is that you're going to probably find something that you didn't pick up the first time. So there you go. Book of the week, Rogue Planet. So there's a lot of tie-ins. There's a lot of continuity callbacks and stuff like that once you get further and deeper into reading into the Star Wars lore. And that's including like shipyards and companies and planets and species, and all of that. It's very interesting how well it has been maintained. Unlike what shills like to say, these anti-EU shills, right? That it is maintained as well as they could in an ever-growing continuity or historical timeline of Star Wars. So that's one of the main things that I was really, really interested in going in to learn more about, the heroes that I love, that I grew up loving, like Luke Skywalker and Han and Leia, and what happened with them and what's going on with the galaxy and stuff like that. So, and then once the PT was introduced, then I was like, "Ooh, we're gonna go on this end and read about this and what happened." And so it just turned into this big old huge exploration of the galaxy, and wanting to learn more, wanting to read more. What happened with this character? What's going on? Oh, there's a new character here. Oh, well, okay. So hopefully expand on them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? And like Lumaya, for example, she was from an early comic. And she got expanded on years later. Well, I wouldn't say years later, but still, yeah, you could say that, I guess. So then all of a sudden you're reading and you're like, oh shit, this character from these early comics. And so it keeps up the excitement. It really, really does. And what was a huge abomination and actually a big, huge loss of money for them doing this is Disney tossing out the EU. Because they wanted creative freedom. They wanted the slate to be clean. And they're not going to get the same magic. They will never get the same magic with their own now explanation of these events in this historical timeline. And even bringing in anything from the classical original EU is not going to be the same thing either. You're not going to catch lightning in the bottle again. And that's just how it is. And, so that's why my stance is here with you guys. George Lucas era Star Wars, the true original Star Wars. This true original is basically what came before. What everybody learned and grew up with, read, no matter your age during that time. And, we all have our own origins of introduction to Star Wars, whether it's the movies and then you decided, oh, well, I came in through the PT, so a lot of my reading and game playing is on this end of the timeline, or the OT where a lot of people came in on that end, some people just came in through the games and that's it. So there's so many different, like, as you could say, origin stories for that. But once we got our feet wet, we dove in, right? We dove in. That water was fine. That water was fine. Yeah. Now it's like sticking your feet in sludge and shit for Disney Star Wars. What would you prefer? What would you prefer? Nice, sandy beach with the water feeling just fine, the waves just waving softly against your toes, and then just going in and just enjoying that water, immersing yourself in, enjoying the nice tropical sun, or walking around and stepping in shit. What would you prefer? All right, so let's get into our Lucas facts now. Lucas facts.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
So Lucas facts, here we go. This is by Lucy Wilson here. And this is from Insider, I believe from 1996. There was a plan from the beginning to develop and maintain a strong continuity. The continuity was founded on the established films and radio dramas and the materials new authors were bringing to the mix. So the continuity is founded on all of that, what the authors brought in, what the films brought in, what the radio dramas brought in, all of that. And they were building this continuity. The continuity, basically, you could say it's the historical timeline. And I believe, and I should have brought up this quote here, but Sue Rustoni was basically saying, it's easier to say continuity than to keep on saying canon when we're talking about Star Wars. So that term continuity, basically meaning everything that is being developed within Star Wars. Continuity is basically a tie-in of everything together, whether it is, if there's hiccups or not. It's still, they correct it, right? It's been corrected. We know that. We've seen the evolution of the EU, of actually Star Wars in general, because even George Lucas was updating and his movies, the OT, and even used in EU, having EU put in there in his movies and stuff. And people were like, oh, well, he wasn't directly involved when those decisions were made. You know what? It's his movies. And if you look at the history of George Lucas, anything that goes in the movies, he has a say. He was very adamant from the beginning. That's why he stepped away from Hollywood. He took his studio up into the Delta area, I guess you can say, Bay Area, Delta area, and established himself as an independent. And he has been very successful with his model. Very successful. That's why it's like, just looking back, and even when I was first watching this all go down, the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney to a corporate, I was like, oh, George, you are just stepping away from your own moral beliefs against corporate Hollywood. But that's what happens when you have someone romancing you, pushing you to sell. And Bob Iger even says that in his biography of him, basically planting that seed and keep on revisiting and revisiting and revisiting, and then feeding into the emotional state of George Lucas. Well, you're getting old, you're married now, you're gonna retire, or you need to retire. So filling in those all those emotional states, right? Feeding the emotional state. Feeding the emotional state. So he sold to Disney. And you could say he went against his morals, and he even regretted it. So whatever your opinion is about that, just looking at that and analyzing, it's quite interesting. It is quite interesting. And me going and researching and bringing up everything that I need to for, you hear the grandbaby? She's so cute. I haven't seen her this morning. She's out of the room now. But looking at the state of Star Wars, George Lucas, his regrets, the sequel treatments that he sold as a part of the negotiation process, all of that, it's helped me broaden more on how much he was manipulated, and it still, with me, shares that he was really never planning on doing in a sequel trilogy. That was just a prime ample opportunity to place insurance for the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney. And I'm also doing some quotes, I guess say misused quotes for anti-EU shills. So I'm bringing up the whole context of these quotes that they cherry pick and try to use against the EU as being canon. So I'm in the process of doing that. So I have 2 great big projects I'm working on. And so my swoop video basically has not been published. I need to get that done because that's a quicker, easier one, on top of other things. So let's see here. So here is your Lucas Facts. And I'm going to go ahead and play this real quick and refresh my coffee and go give my taco jaw a nice little kiss.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the Expanded Universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The Expanded Universe respects the reader. In the Expanded Universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the Expanded Universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the Expanded Universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the Expanded Universe.
Long live the Expanded Universe. Yep. So, still building your library. You know, there's places to find books, but I think now that we're like 11 plus years in after the buyout, it probably is going to be a little harder to get some comics and some books at a reasonable price, especially if they're hardcover or they're very popular. But continue to build your library. Now, New Jedi Order. New Jedi Order. I did not create a slide for this like I usually do. So I'm just going to put just the beginning of the slide up just to have. So we've been going through, we're finishing up Destiny's Way of the timeline here, and I'm read past that already. But for the Caf Chat's sake, that's where we're at. We are in the timeline of Destiny's Way, and I can't wait till we get further and talk here, especially when we get to Pelion and the Imperial Remnant. I'm very interested in talking more about that. So, but we've seen this invasion going on. We've seen the claw of the this right here. We've seen that, you know, from the beginning where they first I guess you could say entry point is, and how they slowly made their way down. And what's interesting, we did talk about Viger this last time, and this is what the slide is from, is she basically went back with them, like I said. And then as they were returning, she basically gave them coordinates. She helped them. She helped them with the invasion. And so that's where, again, I see her as a dark sider, a dark Jedi at the most, or at the least. I mean, so you see the invasion here, path, and a lot of these places that they researched and looked at, they had their implants already, like Nomenor. And so they had this gathered intel. And they had this, what you could say is this mapped entry and resources that served the galaxy and planets that were big resource suppliers or big hubs for the galaxy. And so you see all of this. You see all of this tactic, all of this I want to say technological, because that's not where I'm going at. So the tactical planning of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion that basically caught everyone off guard. We know Darth Maul has fought a Vong. We know that there was the Vong, Nomenor was in the Crimson Empire. Is that the name of it? Did I get that right? And so we know that there has been tie-ins in when creating the lore here regarding New Jedi Order. And so I think that is something that has been strategically planned and makes for interesting, like, little gems to go back and look and read and discover, especially if you're new to the lore and you're participating in the New Jedi Order and all of that. So just call back these little gems. Destiny's Way, peak story. Exactly. I agree. Let me see. And if Filoni really wanted to honor George Lucas, then he should have had quit by now, or don't accept being hired in the first place. And that's the interesting thing there, because we've had some people leave after the buyout, and I truly believe some of these people who left did not like the direction that the everything was going to go. And that's an interesting topic to discuss on a future Caf Chat. So I will pull up all those people that left regarding the buyout, and we'll have that discussion. Let's see here. And I wish black men took over Lucasfilm than cowboy type T Filoni. Interesting. Okay. Let's see here. Another sleeper book, guys, on my rereads. Destiny's Way and Edge of Victory Conquest were even better than the first time I read them. And that's the thing. Sometimes when you first read something, you're like, okay, this is mid, or oh yeah, I got the story and I'm done. But when sometimes you go back and reread, you're gonna find stuff, like I said, that maybe you didn't discover in the beginning, or maybe your experience in the Star Wars lore now is a little bit more I should expanded. No pun intended, unless you want it to be a pun. And so you're more open to catching these little nuances, these little historical callbacks and stuff like that. So, yeah. Let's see here. So this historical timeline, and you see Luke, when people are like, oh, you know, like these anti-EU shills, I guess you could say, but these anti-EU people, when you see them say, oh, well, the EU is so bad and they made Luke godlike, and they go on to, oh, he's pulling, or he's moving or whatever, a black hole, or he's pulling down something like, you know, a star destroyer or whatever, or AT-AT or whatever. And they use little things like that. They're just using one or two, but very misunderstood pieces of lore. And now that black hole basically is just, you know, one of, it's just from one of the Yuuzhan Vong starfighters, you know, I forget what it's called. I don't have the information in front of me. Something that I don't keep in my mind all the time, but it's just one of their devices when they're fighting, and it opens up to basically suck in the energy so that they can use it again to fire back and stuff like that. Now I know Purist knows what it is, but anyways, and so Luke learned how, and it looks like a little black hole, and Luke learned how to manipulate that. That's just a device. That is just a technology, a biological technology of the Vong. It's not a true black hole. It's nothing like that. It's not like he's moving moons and moving huge or the little tiny black holes and manipulating space and time. It's nothing like that. And New Jedi Order, you see Luke basically in doubt, and there is fear. Yeah, the gravitic anomaly via the Dovin basals. There you go. See, I couldn't remember what the Dovin basals were, and are the name of them, of it. Thank you. And you know, so he's conflicted, and he has a bit of fear. And that's scary for Luke, basically being in fear, because you know the thing, you know, fear leads to, you know, that little saying. But he's afraid of having his Jedi turn into multiple Darth Vaders. And he's having this fear of, like, if they fight, what will become of the Jedi in the terms of the dark side. And then he also has, you know, conflicting forces within his own order. You know, with Corn Horn versus Kip Duran, and you know, and when should they fight, and how should they fight, and you know, so there's huge conflict that he has within himself, within the order, and he's trying to maintain. And of course, over time, lessons, reality, experiences help him move out of that state for the safety of the galaxy. And in no way is he coming out as a superhero or this overpowered person that's going over there and just killing everything just to save the galaxy and stuff like that. And so I'm just using New Jedi Order as an example. You can go back to like the Jedi Academy trilogy, where basically Exar Kun basically knocks his ass out into a coma and nearly kills him. And his own students have to unite together to destroy Exar Kun. And even his little twin niece and nephew, you know, step in as well. So you have that. So I don't know how these people come to this conclusion, or maybe I do. It's just that they never read the lore before, and they're just using a rhetoric without experience and experience, I mean reading the lore, getting into it, researching all of that to make these claims to defend Disney Star Wars. And that's quite crazy in its own self, especially when they're talking about Luke Skywalker in general in the Disney Star Wars lore timeline. Let me see here. Let's see here. I mentioned Kip, so I figured you guys would be talking about him. Kip Duran did it and better than Luke, but no one complains about it. I wonder why, right? Let's see here. And Kip Duran did it also. Oh, I already read that one. There's two of them. Oh, you have two going on right there. Let's see here. Whoops, it jumped on me. If to be honest, crazy force power isn't anything new in the EU. People want to complain about Luke, just shows they really don't know the EU and several characters who are crazy powerful. You can get into the ancient Jedi or the ancient Sith, where, you know, they're at their full capacity. They have the alchemy. They have more experience with the dark side of the Force and the Force in general and stuff like that. And over time, that all that knowledge has been lost or destroyed or hidden from the Sith. And so you see I wouldn't say it's a regression. Maybe it is. I don't know. But you see the loss of knowledge of the Sith when it comes to Palpatine. Now, Palpatine is he collects historical things, but particular Sith stuff. And so he's in the search of learning more about the Sith, their alchemy, everything. Whereas his master basically was like, I'm only going to teach you what I want you to know, because I don't want you to destroy me and become the master. And that's been the rule of two, basically, in a nutshell. And because Palpatine is a person who likes to collect historical things, including Sith stuff, he caught on to what Plagueis was doing and started getting more into like finding more alchemy type Sith powers or abilities and stuff like that. So you see that interesting thing. And that's another thing to expand on as a channel or as a Star Wars channel in general. So anybody who has a channel that's geared on Star Wars, like Purist, maybe that's an interesting that we can talk about, is one day just talking about the relationship between Palpatine and Plagueis, and what Plagueis was hiding from Palpatine, and how Palpatine basically superseded Plagueis in a lot, I wouldn't say in a lot of knowledge, but he caught on and started collecting and started learning more than what his master wanted for him to know. So very interesting there. And I think that, you know, having everything constantly the same with no evolution, no regression, no cause and effects kind of situations makes for a bad lore. Like, you know, you hear that? That's so cute. I love it. All right. To be honest, crazy force. Oh, I read that one already. Chewie got killed by a moon. Kip was right. Kip was right. And let's see here. We'll talk about that. And that's one thing I forgot to mention. We're on the top of the hour already. That's one thing I forgot to mention, is that we're going to talk about Filoni too. And Filoni, and we'll get into that here pretty soon. And Filoni basically, supporting the upcoming Rey movie that, you know, they've been advertising for how many years now, and how Starfighter will set that up. What do you think about that? As a fan, as quote unquote fans to Filoni. And what is your insight on that? What is your insight on that? Let's see here. Let's see here. All these EU haters from my pattern recognition are these arrogant snot-nosed 20-somethings, are people who only got into Star Wars with Disney, are pretended to like to grow the channels. Very interesting. And one thing I did not go back and do yet is Star Wars Theory has 2 recent videos out, one on Jason Solo, and I forgot what the other one's about. But we know he has confessed he has not read anything EU, including the new Jedi Order. So how can, and has been even proven with Fate of the Jedi or Legacy of the Force. So how does he come up with these videos? Well, we already know he has his ghost, quote unquote, ghost writers, right? But he comes up with these videos, doesn't really know anything about the lore, about the development of these characters, and even the little nuances about them. Now, who would you like to learn from when it comes to lore? Someone that has read and discussed and knows the nuances about these characters and the timeline and stuff, or just someone who just prides himself only knowing George Lucas movies? I know George Lucas movies too. I know the EU. I know the characters. And if there's one that I really specifically really don't know much, I'll figure it out. I will go back and say, oh, they're from this book. Let me go ahead and read this book. Build my curiosity on there and research, learn more. And there's even clips. Let me see. I think I have it here. Let me go ahead and play it. I think I have it here. Let me remove this. Where is it? Here it is. Is this the book to do?
I haven't read that book.
Oh, really?
No. Nope. No, there's a lot of books I haven't read.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were like an encyclopedia.
No, that's not me. That's more so Ryan. Badger. You had a guy earlier on, Purist, Justin.
Oh, yeah, Justin, yeah.
He's an encyclopedia. Trying to think who else. But yeah, those are like the main ones, really. I'm more so the first 6 films, some select EU stuff.
Some select EU stuff. Well, we already, like, Purist did his homework when it comes to the Vader movies or whatever he's doing. Vader films he's doing. Is he already exposed that he's using the Dark Lord Rise of Darth Vader novel for script for some areas of those, or some aspects of his films? So that's what he means by some select EU stuff. So very interesting, right? Very, very interesting. All right, let's see. Plagueis discarded things he wasn't interested in or good at, i.e. Sith alchemy and sorcery, wrapped up in midichlorians. Correct. And I talked about this before, he was more scientific than, I guess you can say, alchemy, sorcery, but alchemy can be scientific too, but more sorcery and stuff like that. So he's more that way. So great conversation to have. Maybe I can have it on my channel. I haven't had anybody on my channel co-host with me, be a guest with me in a very long time. So maybe I could set that up in the future. All right. Although Darth Bane believed in Sith, honing in on their strengths, his Sith lightning versus Zana's sorcery. That's a good one. They complain about Starkiller being OP, and yet they're fine with Rey being OP for literally no reason at all. Correct. And I know George Lucas movies too. Anakin isn't a pole smoker. Oh my God, that's fucking hilarious. All right. Let me see here. Wow, you guys are funny. Okay, let's see here. People that claim to know Star Wars but know nothing about it or only watch the movies should never touch it ever again. Ooh, those are some strong words there, sir. All right. So I gave the question. So you know what? I'm going to save this for cringe factor. So this is supposed to be cringe factor. So we're not going to get into that just yet. So here we go. So let's talk about Odyssey. let's talk about mythology. So let me bring this up here. Let me bring this up because I thought this was funny. Where is it at? The Odyssey, Homer Simpson. Now, mythology. When it comes to mythology, the one that really got into the in-depth study of mythologies is Joseph Campbell. And he has pointed out a lot of similar structure. I guess you get a spine of it is similar, I guess you can say, when you get into mythologies. But mythology is a glimpse into cultures, their beliefs, possibly their gods, their goddesses, whatever. And, and then also has life stories that are teaching that you can learn from, experiences, all of that. So mythology is a way of, expressing stories, maybe some very, I guess, exaggerated historical timeline in a sense. Then also, life lessons. So we have all of that, and then how the creation stories is for a lot of cultures. So we have a lot of that, and within those creation stories can also turn into the hero's journey as well. Again, showing some lessons that, and structure for the society that's telling these stories. There's always opportunity of lessons when it comes to mythology. But when you look at mythology and look at where they come from, and you just look at the outside of it and not go deep into its bone structure, I guess you could say. I call it removing the meat, meat and potatoes from it and getting into, the structure. But when you look at from the outside looking in, you're seeing this great story of adventure, of hardship, all of that. And also it pertains to the origin of that part of the world, though that group of people. Like I said, you can remove everything and strip it down to the bones, and everything's going to have the similar structural foundation. And when you get into even Star Wars, I'm going to use Star Wars. I love Lord of the Rings too, and Tolkien has his built mythology for his people. Beautiful stories, fun stories to read, getting into and stuff like that. There's a lot of that in there, but Star Wars basically is where I'm much more experienced, even though I love Lord of the Rings and I can talk about it all the damn time. I just haven't studied more into the behind the scenes with Tolkien and his writings and stuff. So we'll get into George and we'll get into Star Wars. Then we'll get into the Odyssey, and I'll pull the article up that I have, the timeline of the Odyssey. So George, creating the story here, he was inspired by a lot of things. And I wouldn't say that they're based upon anything in general, because there's so much that George pulled from when it comes to from the earth, the historical timeline of the earth during, and like countries and stuff during the time frame when he was alive, and even before and after. Well, I'm not say after because he's still alive, but even after some of those events, into more of my, into more of modern, I guess you could say. So he's pulled ancient mythologies and turned and used some of those structures to create the Jedi and even the Sith. He's taken cultures like Japanese from their mythologies to even their actual people and groups like the samurai. He's taken different types of aspects of spirituality and religions to create these aspects within Star Wars. So when people from different faiths and different spiritualities, when we get into the story, we can relate to it, even though it's not pertaining to our own spirituality, our religion, because he's taken and stripped everything away from it and taken the bare bones of it and using it to build upon for like the Jedi, the Sith, and other societies and what's going on and stuff like that. World building, character creating, or species creating, or societal or whatever. And with that, I believe that is the way to go if you're going to use mythologies from different cultures. Instead of changing like people, their looks, their origins, what have you, you're stripping all that away and coming into this bare bone and using that. And that, you could say, basically could be the hero's journey. And you're building upon something else to where you're building a whole new society. You're building a whole new spiritual process, whole new way of telling a story. Fictional, right? Fictional. And even with real life inspired, like life events inspired inspiration, taking that and taking it and just looking at what is that theme of that. Yeah, political theme, right? But what is behind that? And how can that be used to shape what the bad guys or even the good guys are doing? Right? And then taking that and world building with that. So he's building the world pertaining to that world, the events pertaining to that event, those events going on in that world, right? So it's not based on, it's inspired by. And when I look at all these like quotes that have been shared millions of times by me and other people about George Lucas, looking at how he described things, he has a unique way of describing things to where, yeah, you're like, wait, I think you meant it this way and not that way. And sometimes I think he uses based upon, inspired by as the same thing. Because there's no way that, something can be in the OT based upon, and then when you see the same characters in the PT, then it's based upon another thing. Then you're like, what is it about then? Because if he hasn't told us any of this, we wouldn't know, right? So, inspired by the events that brought up the themes to create the event. Inspired by. And creating a mythology so that we can relate to, we can learn from, we can grow from, we can enjoy as an escapism. And George even has stated, and I think it's in one of the archives here, I think it might be in archives episode 4 through 6, I believe. But anyways, he has stated there and a few other times that Star Wars basically is in a way is an escapism to take you out of reality and just enjoy yourself, bringing the kid out of you, I guess you could say, right? Appealing to the inner child. He even said that, the inner child, including it is for kids. Let me see what you guys are saying, because I'm not even looking at the screen. I'm not even looking at the screens here. Smash the like. The liquor. Smash the liquor. The liquor. Smash the liquor. Don't be smashing the liquor, or don't be, what are you licking? I don't know. All right. Well, when Shields dishonestly misinterpret quotes like how the Star Wars was always woke and pro-communist because of George's Viet Cong quote. Yeah. And they leave out that in that very same, instance of him also talking about the American Revolution and all this other stuff. Let's see here. Hey there. I just see that you're here. Casual Chris, how are you doing? What I said about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey definitely applies to Disney Star Wars. Yeah, and it can. That's why I'm breaking it down, because Purist and Grizzy and even Melvin and those guys has basically said a lot, pointing out all of this back and forth with shills and stuff like that. Very good. But I wanted to approach it this way. I could have went down there. We could have pulled up some videos from people defending this. But I was like, you know what? Let's talk about the mythology part of this and how it's our responsibility to honor the origins and how it came about. And I'm going to go there now. Now, of course, every culture throughout the whole world has their mythological origins, right? They have their mythologies, and mine included. And, we have the origins and how we got the, I guess you could say, the sacred pipe. And we have the origins on where we came from, how we came to this earth. There's a lot of origins, stories and stuff like that. Now, if those were to be told on film to share a broader look at Native American culture and have a fun way of telling it, not a documentary, but retelling the story like they're doing Odyssey, like they've done with Odyssey so many times, because I've seen Odyssey, some classical old movies about Odyssey, and even read it. It is their responsibility to keep true to the origins. Now, White Buffalo Calf Woman, I would hate to have them have anybody put her as a blonde-haired woman, blue eyes. Because in our origin stories about her, our mythological stories about her, she's not that. And then, like, if you go into the story of hers where it shows about morality and how you treat women, I guess you can say. I'm not going to tell the whole story about this, but there's an instance where how two men approach her, and it's just a story about how you approach and treat women, basically, in general. The story is a lot more deeper than that. There's a lot more behind that. And you wouldn't be casting maybe the one that's making the bad moves, I guess you can say, as a white guy, just because you want to shame white people, right? Because that's not what happened. And so I'm just going into instances of that. And to Odyssey, with Nolan's interpretation, I guess you can say, and the casting of characters and stuff. Now, they're not gonna always be able to cast someone from the same culture, race. Sometimes or nearly that might be impossible. But it's about casting the likeness and respecting the story, right? And when you look back at Greek culture back in those days of Odyssey, when it was told, you want to look back and cast the likeness of the people that are telling the stories back then, how they would look at and perceive those characters, those people in the mythology, the gods, the goddesses, all of that, right? You would want to cast the likeness with that. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up now. Let's see here, share screen. And here we go. Oh, I hear her giving her dad a hard time back there. All right. So Odyssey, Homer's epic journey of Odysseus. So there you go. So this is a quick little timeline here. Whoops, wrong button. Of here. So basically, I probably will share this here in YouTube. I wish there was a way I could post this on Rumble so people can just click on the link and explore this a little more. But basically, if you don't know much about Odysseus' story, you can read it here. And so basically, this is about rescuing Helen of Troy. And then, you have the people casted in, and all of them saying, well, this is about interpretation of the female perspective, that Homer and Greek culture during that time was racist and sexist or whatever. Well, during that time, when you look at the Greek culture, yes, the society was very different then. There was more of men and women roles, and that's just like my culture. Men have their roles, women have their roles. Women were basically keepers of the teepee, I guess you could say. We own the teepee. And this is about also making sure your people survive, your family survive, and these roles were very important during that time. Very different than modern times today. And when you get more into the Greek culture back then, yes, men did a lot more than women. And I think that was kind of predominant throughout the world during that time frame as well. So you could say, and a lot of cultures are not all cultures throughout the world are matriarch. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But what can be wrong is if you are in a culture society where you're chastising women. No matter if you're patriarch, no matter the extreme of the patriarch and stuff, because there could be patriarch cultures that are still honoring women and stuff, and they have their roles and they have freedom in the society and stuff like that, but it's led more of by male society, where a matriarch too is more women society. And you can also get into the extreme of that where men has no rights. So there's both sides to that, right? And so looking back at the culture of the Greek society back then, you have the man who wants to go rescue his woman. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that is misogynistic, would you? All right, let me see here. And back then they're gods and goddesses. Greek has their gods and goddesses. And even those gods and goddesses were also seen in the Italian culture before, religious takeover over there. I guess you could say takeover. Our religion was brought over there, their spirituality. They had their gods and goddesses. So we have all that. Let me see who's coming in. Stunning and Brave. Megatron, how are you doing? Patriarchy for the win. George draws a lot from Iliad. Yep. Also Homer for the prequels. Right. The Greek tragedy. Right. Let me see here. I theoretically believe a good actor in Odyssey, even though I'm not ethnically Greek. I'm English, German, Scottish, Irish, and Spanish Hispanic. Nice. Let's see here. Which come to think of it, Ray has like a year of training, right? I think even less than. It's like when you look at the timeline when they said that she had quote unquote training from Leia, who shouldn't even be training anybody because she's a quitter in the Disney Star Wars timeline, that it's even less. It's even less. All right, let's see here. A story idea I have is an ancient and vampire who is like the benevolent. I tell you, I cannot talk sometimes. I read a benevolent puppet master of the world. She turns certain women throughout historical or history of various fields into vampires as her daughters. Ooh, that sounds crazy. Amassing a huge army to rescue a queen. Sure, total misogyny. Correct. Total misogyny there. So you have the Odysseus and the end of the Trojan War, which he's, Helen of Troy is abducted. He goes on that journey. And you have the curse of Poseidon. So Poseidon basically has put a curse on him, preventing him from returning home and subjecting him to numerous trials and tribulations. And then, so during this time, they want to give the woman, the female perspective of this time when they probably don't even know what's going on with with, Odysseus. The island of the lotus eaters. So he has, that experience here. We're going to get to what this all means. So, or what the conclusion here is. So if you haven't caught on yet, you're going to get it here pretty soon. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. And then so the first challenge of Odysseus and his crew faced with the island of the lotus eaters, the inhabitants offered his men the lotus fruit, which caused them to forget their desires to return home. So you have that. And then the counter with the Cyclops, the Sirens, Cycla, and the Charybdis. I've always had a hard time with saying that word. And so you have that. The voyage brought them past the alluring songs of the sirens, and all these little trials going on here. Getting some of the men getting cursed by forgetting their mission or returning home and stuff like that, and and Odysseus getting cursed. All of that. The island of the circle. On the island of the circle, a powerful sorceress, Odysseus's men were transformed into swine. With the help of the god Hermes, Odysseus resisted, the magic, or be turned into swine as well. And he also convinced her to restore the men. So you have the Circe turning these men into swine, and he gets help by another god, and everything gets restored back. His men get restored back. He overcomes the magic, all of that. So you have gods and goddesses, good and bad, what have you. And a lot of these gods that are here in the Greek mythology are not necessarily bad, I guess you could say. They're just succumbing to their magic and stuff like that for whatever reason. So there's many different reasons for gods and goddesses and what happens and stuff like that. They stayed on the island for a year, enjoying her hospitality before resuming their quest. So he overcomes. He convinces her to restore his men. They enjoy their stay, and then the land of the dead. So you have another experience here, and he is the Circe's advice, Odysseus journeyed to. So we, like I said, they're not necessarily bad or good gods and stuff. Sometimes there's tests, and when you overcome the test, then you up level. And Odysseus journeyed into the underworld to seek the prophet Tiresias' guidances. There he communicated with the spirits of the dead, including his fallen comrades and his own mother, learning crucial information for his return to Ithaca. So there you go. So from that, he kind of up leveled. She helped him out. He got to speak to the dead, and returned to Ithaca, Calypso's inland. So you have that there. After losing all of his men due to transgression against the sun god Helios, Odysseus washed ashore on the island of Ogygia. I probably said that wrong. Home of to nymph Calypso. So many of you guys may have heard of her. She detained him for 7 years, offering immortality if he stayed. Longing for home, Odysseus was eventually released by the order of Zeus, conveyed by Hermes. And so then you have that story there. And reunion and revenge. So returning to Ithaca, disguised as a beggar, Odysseus found his place overrun by suitors vying for his wife Penelope's hand. With the help of his son Telemachus, I probably said that wrong, and the goddess Athena, he orchestrated a plan to reclaim his home, revealing his identity. Odysseus defeated his suitors in the dramatic showdown, returned to Penelope after 20 long years. Themes of the Odyssey, hero's journey. So many of you guys may know this already, or I told you this already in the beginning, or now you're learning about it. The Odysseus is quintessential example of the hero's journey, showcasing Odysseus's growth through trial and his unwavering determination. His intelligence, bravery, and resilience embodied the ideal traits of a Greek hero. So there you go. And the role of the gods. The epic highlights of capricious nature of the gods with deities like Athena aiding Odysseus, while other like Poseidon hinder him. The interplay reflects the ancient Greeks' beliefs about divine influence in mortal lives. And then loyalty and perseverance. The unwavering loyalty between Odysseus and Penelope serves as a central theme. Despite numerous temptations and obstacles, their commitment to each other underscores the value placed on mortal fidelity and perseverance. So there you go. So the legacy of Odysseus, influence on literature and culture. So here we go. So we have the influence here. The influence here on literature and culture. Can we still relate to this without being Greek? Yes, we can. Just like we can relate to Star Wars without really living in space and experiencing what Luke has and an experience of different species and stuff and what they've gone through, we still relate to it because there's themes, underlining themes and experiences that are basically, you could say, human experiences or similar to our own. The Odyssey has profound influenced Western literature, inspired countless adaptations and work that explore similar themes of adventure, self-discovery, and quest for home. Its character and narratives have become archetype in storytelling. A window into ancient Greek society, and this is very important. The epic provides insight into ancient Greek values such as hospitality, honor, and the importance of cunning over brute strength. It also reflects societal norms and the role of fate and the gods in human affairs. So think about that. Window into ancient Greek society. So Greek society, ancient is the key word. Society is very different than it is today, but we could still relate to it. But when relating to something, do we have to see the character as our own skin color? Actually, no, we don't. And I think it gets superficial when you think you do. You can also say it gets, a bit narcissistic too, if you want to go that extreme. Just like if I tell you some stories from my culture, there could be things that you can relate in there, even though you're not Lakota. It's about the human condition, right? The human condition. But we don't have to see these people have the same skin color, speak the same language, what have you, to relate to the story that they're telling, right? The time frame of the journey. A common misconception is that Odysseus's journey lasts 10 years due to the length of the voyage alone. In reality, much of the time was spent detained by Calypso, which the actual travel covering a shorter period. So there you go. So we have all this so we have all this right here that I thought I'd share, and I'll share the link here in a little bit. Let me see here. I only accept things when I see the whites. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Pierce is like, I'm not going to listen to your guys' story. Bullshit. Ray uses brute strength to fix her problems. Yeah. Let's see here. And Odysseus wanted to go home after the War of Troy. Let's see here. And it's like making sure I haven't overlooked anything. And of y'all had to read the Odyssey in high school, I remember it was a mandatory reading. Yeah, we read it. We read it. I read it, at least. I don't know about you guys. I know he said he did. So I wonder if they don't have you read it anymore. I wonder when that stopped. I wonder when that stopped because I don't recall my kids having to read it at all. It makes more sense if she was Luke's daughter on. Oh, you guys are talking about Rey. Let's see here. So, with that being said, looking at this now, I know it's been said, like Nolan or what have you, or maybe people are just saying Nolan said this, or maybe there's just saying this to defend his choice. Is maybe, or I wouldn't say maybe, but casting someone that doesn't fit the description of the historical timeline of the people of that culture. What is said about that is that she was the better performing actor for it. So, what does that mean then? If she's the better performing actor, that there was no one that can visually resemble the culture, the people of that time that didn't perform very well, and she did. But wouldn't there be standards of like appearance and how someone has to look in order to fill that role? Right? You would think. And then, so that being said, if that's the standard that's supposed to be set or, what have you, to, be consistent with the timeline of this, when that story was told, then wouldn't you go with the person who looks like the people of that time frame? The best actor that looks like, or actress that looks like the people of that time frame? Reading the Odyssey and knowing about it as someone who, is of mixed ethnicity, basically, of Native American, Filipino with a little bit of Spanish and French. I did not see these characters as my people or even Filipino or Asian. I was like, these are Greek people, so they are Mediterranean. So yeah, they can be a little dark complected, some blonde hair, some brown hair, depending on the origins and stuff like that. Because you have this Mediterranean that was influenced by different races and culture. But during that time, not as much. I wouldn't say not as much. Oh no. Yeah. So just thinking about that, I am going to play this real quick and I'll be right back. Let me see here. Where is it?
3, 2, 1.
Everything published was king.
Good day, Star Wars fans. Long live George Lucas era of Star Wars. If you are new here, welcome.
All right. Sorry about that, you guys. I thought something was going down. I needed to step away, but I'm back. And I didn't know what video to click that would give me enough time except for that one. All right. But I blame Toby. OG had to step away. I blame Toby. Yeah, so everything's fine. All good. But anyways, I just wanted to make sure everything was all good. All right, and I had enough time for it. So coming back to mythology. So when we get into Star Wars here, you have, what the book's called by Mary Henderson, Star Wars, The Magic of Myth. And I highly recommend putting that, especially when you're very interested, very interested in the mythology behind Star Wars, what was going on with George Lucas, I guess you could say, when he was building this Star Wars universe through the movies. And then as writers were being brought in, they had to, stay with the mythology that was created through George Lucas for the timeline, through the stories that they added. So this right here, I'm reading just the beginning here. I'm going to read what George Lucas said, and then I'm going to read some more. Throughout the inhabited world, in all times and under every circumstance, the myths of men have flourished, and they have been the living inspiration of whatever else may have appeared out of the activities of the human body and mind. So that's by Joseph Campbell, The Heroes with 1,000 Faces. And a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away by George Lucas. Throughout the history, humans have told each other stories to share their experiences of the world, to explore ways of dealing with life's problems and adventure, and to try to fathom the deeper meaning that underlie daily life. Some of these stories have become myths with the potential to guide their inspired generations after generation of those who see and hear them. But what is a myth? What is magical about it, and how has Star Wars come to represent one of the greatest myths of all times? So think about that. Myths, stories to learn by, to inspire, to create, I guess you can say, community as well, to influence. Humans have been telling this myths for a very, very long time. And I also pose the question again, is maintaining accuracy per culture or per the origin of the myth, right? And we have Disney Star Wars that has deconstructed the myth. That's deconstructed the myth. Many of us had our first contact with mythological stories in school. We studied with more or less enthusiasm of Greek, Roman, and Norse, African, and Asian myths about the creation of the world, the workings of nature, and the jealousies, war, loves, and misadventures of a wide range of gods and goddesses, heroes, and heroines. These stories arose as an ancient peoples struggled to answer the most fundamental questions about their humanity, such as why are we here? How can we live up to our highest potential? Is there a force that exists within and beyond us that we may call God? What is our relationship with this God, and how can this relationship guide us on life's journey? So we have a lot of that. And Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, and I have that book next to me, basically goes through all of that, breaks that down. And throughout this book, if you don't have it, it has the little chapters here. Myth and the Modern World, The Journey Inwards, The First Storytellers, Sacrifice and Bliss, The Hero's Adventure, The Gift of the Goddess, Tales of Love and Marriage, and Mask of Eternity. So when you look at like mythology when it comes to love and marriage, you have those stories still of what the compassion and love is and all of that, and how to truly to sustain love. It goes beyond just what George Lucas says is the selfish thing of attachment and stuff. Love and marriage can still coexist as something that's open without attachment as well. So reading further into like the power of myth regarding that and stuff also has been enlightening as well. So you have that. And if you want to recreate a storyline that, when you strip away the Odyssey and just look at the bones of it, the structure of it, and you want to strip away that and maybe make a mythology that is pertaining to a certain culture, not just the Greek culture, that's fine. But when you're retelling the story of the Odyssey and portraying the characters and stuff like that, and even the language and stuff like that, in a whole different light, that's going to displace a lot. It's going to, yeah, displace a lot of reality behind, I wouldn't say reality, the story and the origins behind that. And I wish I could speak to someone of the origin who is Greek on this, what Nolan's doing, to get a further understanding. I love to talk to people of an origin when something is happening where their mythology, where their culture is being misrepresented during the time. And so I just want to leave that here, is historical accuracy. In a time frame where we have both sides of the political aisle going extremes on culture's historical timeline being shared and not shared, and how people think it should be in light of maybe representing certain people, like people of color. But I don't want to be misrepresented in a culture that's not mine. So I don't want to see myself like a casted Native American in Odyssey. I'd rather honor the people who brought the story and it being true to them. Just like I don't think that, I would hate to see like my culture's own mythology being represented the same way. And then like I said, going back to Star Wars, whole new story being told in a whole new way, a whole new mythology. The Greeks are not happy, OG. Okay. So I think it's our responsibility to tell the stories as we learn them, historically correct with historical people. And I've seen the clip by Grizzy with Campia going off and saying, well, if it's Wakanda, well, Wakanda basically is a franchise story of a group of people that was not influenced by outside society. And that group of people, Black, right? African, Black. Yeah, we wouldn't want to see that happen with them, right? So the same thing happens here, except for this storytelling in a franchise has nothing to do with real life storytelling of a mythology, just like Star Wars. It's not our reality of mythology. It's a fantasy of it's like of a franchise story told under mythology, through mythology, right? But it's not a story that is told in our reality to influence life back in ancient days, right? We can still learn from both, obviously. And so that still applies. Still applies with, Odyssey on representing the people of the time. Just like the franchise storyline for Wakanda. You still don't want to switch that out either. Now, Star Wars, if they made Luke Skywalker Black or I'm going to use Native American as the example. I'll use Native American as an example. I would not want to see a casted Native American man or a woman casted as Luke Skywalker, because that's not how George created the character. Just like Lando Calrissian, don't cast a white person as him, because that is him. Like how we see them originally casted is how their characters are supposed to be. All right, so I'm going to close here with this, and we're going to get on to cringe factor. So we're going to go over a little bit, and then I'm going to get myself back into my, I guess you could say, back into my normal routine outside of YouTube and Rumble and X and all of that, and, and all that. So, but let's see here. Campy is a sellout. Yes, I agree. And yep, funny how they can respect the culture, or they can't respect the culture while at the same time claim they are tolerant of others. And that's a great way to point things out. The hypocrisy of that. the hypocrisy of what's going on today of being tolerant. Oh, you got to be tolerant of people, but then not applying that and not honoring and being tolerant of like, oh, or honoring of these cultures that and their mythologies and stuff. All right. And it's also been said, you know, like, and I agree because I pointed this out like a few months ago, is that like in order to get nominations for awards and stuff, you have to fit certain dynamics within your movies, right? So if you don't have that, then you're not going to be eligible for nominations. So how can Nolan get a nomination? Well, he's going to, you know, try to fit the criteria, and that's exactly what he's doing. Okay, let's see here. Let's get into our cringe factor now. So, okay, let's see here. Cringe factor.
So uncivilized.
All right. Speaking of Toby, he's raising hell right now. Toby, stop it. He's laying in the sunlight here in the studio and playing with some string and knocking down one of my canvases. And yeah, it's not going very well here. Cringe factor. I have asked you guys, what do you think about Filoni supporting the Rey movie? And seeing and looking, when you're looking at what's being said about Starfighter, you're seeing it's like almost like a prequel to the possible Rey movie coming out. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think? And also, we're going to get into this, but you know, remember the rumors about like, oh, they're gonna bring back Cade Skywalker, and I'm like, how? Because Luke never got married, he never had any children, I guess, pertaining like when you get into Disney Star Wars. So how is this? How come it's not showing? Get up there on screen. There we go. How is this going to be any type of descendant of Luke, of Anakin, when you're not when that they are basically sharing that there are no more Skywalkers at all. No more Skywalkers. So just imagine that they totally Skywalker lineage, and that's in existence as quote unquote a Skywalker. So again, ripping apart the stories of George Lucas, and I wouldn't say mythology here because it's more of an origin of carrying on a bloodline, I guess you can say. And they were trying to make her like, so the hiccups, I wouldn't even say hiccups, but the non-planning of the Disney trilogy went from Rey nobody to them not knowing what they're going to do with her to making her a Palpatine. And they even admitted that they had no plan whatsoever for the 3 installments of their trilogy. They tossed the trilogy treatments that George gave them, use similar themes. Using themes does not mean that they're honoring what George gave them, because themes are very vague. Themes are very, very vague. And so here we go. So I am saying that because Filoni is basically the president, and then you have the co-president, that even when this story came about, the proposal of the story and the development was quote unquote under the Kennedy era, it's still, because Filoni was the lead creative, I guess you can say, of Lucasfilm, you know that he has a say on if it's going to be used or not, because he is the chief creator, right? So Star Wars Starfighter spoilers reveal story details in Eva Mendes' surprise role. Into all of us, I don't think. So we have this right here about about this developing story here. And they use Making of Star Wars. Stop it. Making of Star Wars, they believe is a highly trusted source for Star Wars leaks. And as we first reported on sffgazette.com, the outlet has just shared some intriguing new details about what to expect from the upcoming movie. So they're saying that basically the Ryan Gosling's character reportedly is named Cade. And so this is where the rumors come about in the past about Cade Skywalker being brought in. And the Flynn Gary is either Roan or Ronin, or at least something like that. That sounds one of those. And is said to be wearing a necklace of some sort of importance. So a necklace of importance. So are they doing another MacGuffin story, I guess? Because everything that they brought in so far is MacGuffin related, including the Skywalker lightsaber for Rey, including the Wayfinder. There's all kinds. You can go into even some of the shows. The on-screen chemistry between them is really strong, and the projected Hail Mary star hero is prepared to a rogue Han Solo style protagonist. So it's funny how they have to compare him to an already established character that is loved and liked by fans, right? As expected, he's tasked with escorting the child, Gary's character, presumably to a Jedi refuge or academy on the planet called Adria. So there you go. So we have this here. These are leaks here. And that's why I'm asking you guys the question here. Do you like of Filoni supporting and how this looks to be a prequel to the coming Rey movie? Now, many people have said, oh, well, this was casted, this was brought about under Kennedy, and now they're going to change the story, and it's not going to lead to Rey, and, all of these things here. I've heard people say, even people who don't like the Disney trilogy, but support Disney Star Wars in general. So again, these are what they call rumors or leaks here. And so with that being said, a prequel to setting up the Rey movie, is it's going to be potentially something to where we see now Rey now creating what is, quote, the code name New Jedi Order, taking that away from what we have been talking about, the New Jedi Order here from the original Star Wars, making it Rey's, and how seeing a child being sent to her for protection, to train, and all of that. What do you guys think about that? Now, I used to say, I hope this all fails. It doesn't happen, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I want to see failure in action. We've been seeing it for 11 plus years now. I want to continue to see failure in action. What about you guys? Failure in action, right? And so far, they have not learned. And you would think that, people are like, oh, well, the Disney trilogy is all about Luke's failure and and the human experience. And they defend Luke's character in Disney trilogy that way. And it's a lesson, and he overcomes, and blah, blah, blah. Not like he's never experienced failure before, not even in the EU or in the OT. It's more of a regression, but I can talk about that later. We're not going to get into that. So how come then, because going back to mythologies, Star Wars is a mythology, a way to learn by seeing the character move through, right? So Disney can't learn through their character, Jake Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, in failures, to see what's in front of them and how they're failing and how they failed from the beginning by tossing away the EU, by even tossing away the treatments that George gave them. And yet their fans will say, oh, you're supposed to learn from Luke. He's a big failure, and that's why you need to learn from that, blah, 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 blah. And they're talking about the Disney trilogy. And I'm like, Come on now. We've seen Luke grow and develop from failure, all of that within the OT, leading into the novels, the comics, all of that outside of the movies. So watching failure in action. Watching failure in action. Do you really think that the Rey movie is going to happen? You know, it's been one of those mini movies that were advertised, what, a few years ago or so, or even longer than that. But yet it's still deemed to be something that's going to happen. Is there going to be a new writer or director named for the Rey movie coming forward? We'll find out after Starfighter. I think this is going to be a big leap into the direction that they're going to go. So if it's really true that these leaks here are leading to Rey, we're going to get more information. If not, maybe there'll still be a Rey movie. We don't know. But I think it's going to be telling to the story. But what's also telling is that the Disney trilogy is not going to be retconned or decanonized or whatever. Not even what those hopeful Disney Star Wars. I'm living on hope that they course correct, because I still want to defend Disney Star Wars. I just don't like the Disney trilogy. Those kind of people. Those type of people. And you really think that Dave Filoni is anti-Rey after what you've seen and heard about him at the women's conference? And I didn't even realize I forgot to pull up that video. I meant to pull it up today. Shit, for this morning. But that women's conference where he's talking about Rey, oh no, another female lead, kind of deal. He is strongly for Rey. And even the making of, I think it is the making of The Rise of Palpatine, he defends Rey in there too. He's all about the female lead. That's fine, because we've seen female lead in the OT. Because when you look at it, like you could say, oh, well, Rey or Luke and Anakin are the main protagonists, but they come in threes. So OT, Luke, Han, and Leia. They all work together throughout the whole OT. Even though the story is about Luke. Like everything moves him. They work together. Then in the PT, you have Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme. They start, like we see in the first episode, everything start coming together. That origin. And then in the second episode, we see 10 years later, them working now fully together. And the third, what happens with that. But there's a lead. Female lead with those. And then when you get into like the comics, the novels, and even the games, I guess you can say, depends on how you play and what the story is about. You have female leads there. Influential characters. Female characters. So this thing about Rey having to fill in this thing that George was basically sexist and didn't have any female leads and blah 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 blah, never created strong female characters. That's fucking bullshit. But is she going to happen? Is this movie going to happen? Yes, it more than likely will. I want to see failure in action. I mean, I've been watching it so far, but I want to continue to see it. Failure in action. All right, you guys. So with that being said, I just wanted to touch bases on this for cringe factor. So it's not really very much cringy other than, oh, my sources and oh, this is going to happen. This is going to be, and his character's name is going to be Cade. And this is what you call, I throw the bone again to the EU people, because we see like that Twi'lek girl from Rebels. What's her name? I forget her name. But anyways, her son is named Jason, and that's in like a callback to Jason Solo, right? So is this one of those another callbacks to a beloved character? Okay, I'm gonna get it. Then I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up. And I want to talk about another thing too. So I'm going to pull up that video, and then I have one more thing to pull up because I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny. Okay, let's see here. Twitter. And here we go. I love it when it goes slow for me because I have so many tabs pulled up. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and listen to this. Whoopsie. All right. I got it right here. Share screen. And where is it? Okay. George Lucas on sexism in Star Wars. So let's see here.
There's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was? She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything and this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. I said, she's the hero of the movie. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Even though she has Jedi on her side, she was still the hero prime mover. And they said, well, but there's no women now. I said, you can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. You know, they can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's their brains and their ability to think and do and plan and be logistical. And, you know, that's what the hero is. They said, there's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those?
Hopefully you heard that all. None of you guys said that their sound's not on. So yeah, so he's talking about like basically Disney's approach of like, oh, there's no women in Star Wars. There's no leads in Star Wars, all of that. So that's a great counter by George. Thank you so much for that as well. Let's see here. And let's go ahead. And I wanted to pull this clip up. If we're going to end here pretty soon. Where is it at? All right. We're going to end up on this funny thing here. I thought it was funny. And so basically, Star Wars Holocron says here, Sam Witwer was somehow not nominated for Best Character Voice Over Performance at the Emmys today. Hashtag justice for Maul. Oh my God. And so I'm cracking up because the verbiage here, I can care less if he's nominated or not. I just was laughing at Star Wars Holocron for what he said. Somehow not nominated. Sam Witwer was somehow not nominated. So I thought that was funny. So we're going to close here with that. What do you think? Do you think he should have been nominated? I can care less if he's nominated or not, you know, and the Emmys is a joke now. Like they sent out a thing to within this year saying that they need more critics to watch, like their judge critics to watch the shows that they're going to go that before they vote on their choice for best of or whatever. So they got to watch the nominations in order to get a clear perspective on their vote. So meaning they didn't really watch shit. They just went in and said, oh, we're going to vote this in. So the criteria is watch the nominations before you vote, before we set who is going to be the best of or whatever their class of nominations is. So with that being said, this was funny. This was funny. Star Wars Holocron, thank you for the laugh on your rhetoric here, or not your rhetoric, but your verbiage. on somehow not nominated. And with that being said, we're going to start closing out. So thank you guys again for hanging out. Caf Chat's back. Some of you, a lot of you guys, well, I wouldn't say a lot of you guys, but there are a few of you guys that know why I was absent the last 2 weeks. I'd rather keep that relatively private, especially when you have ass hats that will attack you for everything and will take this as a way to attack as well. In respect of my family back home on my reservation and stuff like that. So, and my family in general. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Caf Chat next week. Topics will be announced as we come through this weekend and stuff, and as I start prepping again. And we're going to finish up the Destiny's Way event timeline for New Jedi Order and start moving forward. So here we go. Tara thought this was going to be 1 year thing. We're going on our 2nd year, but with the New Jedi Order Renaissance and reread. So I can't wait to talk more in depth of New Jedi Order events because it's coming next week, next Caf Chat. And as always, thank you, Rumbleites on the Rumble side, for tuning in and watching there. If you're watching here on YouTube, go over there, make an account, follow, subscribe over there. Let's build our presence over there. We need George Lucas era of Star Wars over there as well. And yeah, and then when I have exclusive Caf Chat Rumbles premieres over there, you can go over there and hang out as well and support as well. And yes, Purist archive stream on Rumble tonight at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is one of the one when Chef got triggered and came to the live stream of and super chatted. So there you go. So stay tuned for that as well. And as well as me talking Sith happens with Purist as well. So those those dates and stuff will be shared with you here pretty soon. And thank you for tuning in. And remember, if you're catching the replay, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Always share with me what you think, what you think about the topics we're sharing here. And if you want to expand on your the topic that we're talking about, share that in the comments. So I like to see that. I like to see that as well. So thank you guys again and have a great day, and may the force be with you. And I shall talk to you guys later.
Another happy landing.